My name is Josh Paonessa, and today I'm going to be discussing the novel The Outsiders. This is a novel that teens can really relate to because it shows conflict in relationships, helping others, and finally, how to learn to stay true to yourself. Teenagers should read this book because they can learn from the experiences of the characters. The first point I'm going to be talking about with various conflict describes in the novel regarding relationships, more specifically, Johnny's relationship with his parents. Johnny doesn't have a good relationship with his parents. They don't care about him and his well-being, and they abuse him. Johnny wants his parents to respect, or for them to at least show that they care. This point is illustrated on page 88, when Johnny doggedly asks Dally whether his parents asked about him. Dally snaps back with, "No, they didn't." We know that Johnny is upset because, as Dally explains, Johnny didn't say anything, but he stared at the dashboard with such bewilderment that I could have bawled. This passage shows just how upset and disappointed Johnny is with his parents. Johnny was hoping that his parents would be worried or would have asked about or looked about for him since he's been missing for so long. He feels that because they didn't, they must not care. Johnny, being the type of character he is, takes this to heart and sadly never lets it go. Later in the book, when Johnny was in the hospital, close to death, he refused to have his mom visit him. On page 122, Johnny says, "I said I don't want to see her." His voice was rising. "She probably came to tell me about how glad her and the old man will be when I'm dead. Well, tell her to leave me alone for once." It is very sad that even on his deathbed, Johnny refuses to see his mom. But it isn't unusual. In the novel, does a great job of exploring how confusing emotions can be in difficult relationships, and how teenagers, especially, should be close with their parents. The Outsiders is a novel that should speak to teenagers because it does a great job of telling a story through the eyes of a teenager who has conflict and struggles with relationships. The second point we are going to explore has to do with the characters and how they help each other as if they are family. We see this an example when Johnny helps Ponyboy, who's being drowned by the Socs. The Socs, which refers to the rich kids who lived uptown, were able to pin Ponyboy down and push his face in the water. When this happened, Johnny didn't know what to do and didn't feel safe. He decided he had to take action. After he saves Ponyboy from being drowned, he says, on page 122, "I had to. They were drowning you, Pony. They may have killed you, and they had a blade. They were going to beat me up." As it turns out, Johnny stabbed one of the Socs because he was scared for his life and Pony's. This demonstrates how committed Johnny is to his friend Ponyboy. Perhaps the most powerful moment in the novel, and a great example of self-sacrifice and helping others, is when Johnny runs back into the burning church to save the kids inside. Johnny turned his shoulder and the door was blocked off in flames. He pushed the window in and grabbed the nearest kid and gave him to Ponyboy by running back into the burning church to save these kids who are trapped inside. Johnny demonstrates how selfless he can be and how capable he is of helping others. In a way, he behaves of a way a parent might if their child is in danger. Maybe he acts this way to compensate for what he's not getting from his parents. Either way, this should stand as an example of the type of selfless behavior that teens should demonstrate. My third and final point is how you should stay true to yourself. Throughout the novel, there are numerous examples of the importance of staying true to yourself. For example, when Johnny tells Ponyboy on page 148, "Stay gold," he is encouraging Ponyboy to stay true to himself, to be him and not feel like he needs to be someone else. This is important because the last thing Johnny says to Ponyboy, as if he wants Ponyboy to remain pure and to not change, but to be himself. Ponyboy never forgets what Johnny told him, because it's the last thing he said to his friend. Another example in the novel that proves staying true to yourself is an important theme when Two-Bit says on page 171, "Ponyboy, listen. Don't get tough. You're not like the rest of us, and don't try to be. This is an important idea because 2-Bit is telling Ponyboy to stop acting tough and trying to be like the rest of them because that's not who he is, and he shouldn't try to be like them. He tries to make Ponyboy realize that he should not feel pressured to change himself because of the people he's around and to remember to be himself. In conclusion, I think teens should read this book because they can relate to it. It shows them how they can learn from what happens in the book and relate it to their own life. This novel is really appealing and relevant to teenagers today, especially those who struggle with their relationships with their parents. Other lessons to be learned have to do with the importance of self-sacrifice in order to help others and importance of remaining true to yourself, regardless of your peer group, regardless of whether you feel you have to do something to prove. In many ways, The Outsiders does an excellent job of capturing the difficulties of being the teenager, of always feeling like you are on the outside, never feeling like you are part of anything in the end. These teens, like the teens of today, find a group of friends who become as important as family and provide them with the feeling of being not outside, but inside.